What if I told you that your credit doesn't determine whether you can get a car, home, whatever the case may be? It determines how bad they're going to try to screw you over. In this video, I'm going to be talking about, isn't just about buying a car, okay? It's about beating a system that is built to trap you, beating a system that will use inflated APRs, that will use things like hidden fees, dealer fees, so on and so forth, and contracts you are never really supposed to understand. I'll show you how to get a car with bad credit, good credit, or even for free using negotiation, the financing game theory, and consumer law. And I am a very big proponent and really focus on things like commercial remedy. I focus on things like the UCC, consumer law, debt discharge. So what we're going to be talking about today is going to be on both spectrums, on the spectrum of consumer law, but also on the spectrum of negotiating and understanding how they're going to use your situation against you and how to be able to flip the script back onto them. Okay. Now, before we dive into this video, this is not legal advice. This is not financial advice. This is only for educational purposes only. Only take action on these things if you're planning to do the due diligence, do the work, and fully understand how to communicate. Okay. Now, so in this video, we're going to talk about how credit scoring actually works when it comes to dealing with the dealership, purchasing a car. We're going to talk about how to negotiate with bad credit. We're going to talk about how to use consumer law to reduce or even discharge the vehicle debt, and how to use good credit to leverage better deals. So make sure you stick all the way to the end. And we're going to talk about how to get a car for free. All right. Nobody is talking about this. Nobody will even break this down to make it be fully understandable. They will just talk about it to market you. But I'm going to actually break down the myth. I'm going to actually teach you guys how to communicate in a dealership so that you can be able to either get the vehicle that you want on good or bad credit, how to get the best deal, but also at the same time, if you want to position yourself to get the vehicle for free, I'm going to teach you how to do that properly. Okay. So stay all the way to the end because I have a special treat for you guys. Now let's talk about how the credit scoring trap works, okay? There's different credit tiers. There is subprime, deep subprime, prime, and also super prime. Now, first things first, what they don't tell you is that, number one, what they're looking for are people who fall within the subprime buyer, okay? Now, let me just break this down. Super prime is 720 or better. These are typically the people who get the best negotiation terms. They can get the best APR. They can do no down payment, whatever the case may be. If you have a 720 or better, then you have the best positioning to be able to pretty much get whatever vehicle, loan amount, whatever you want, okay? Then we got the people who are in the 660s and the 719. Those are considered prime. Prime and super prime are probably the best places you want to be when you are applying for a vehicle. And especially if you're going to go on the aspect of applying for a vehicle and attempting to do the free consumer law remedy process. Okay. It's always best when you have a better credit score so that you can be able to get around a down payment. Then we dive into subprime and deep prime. Subprime is 580, between 659 and 580, and then deep subprime is anything under 579. Okay, so you have below a 580 credit score, you're probably going to get ripped off the most at the dealership. Your credit score, obviously, you can get approved at any credit score, but the deal that you're going to get is always not going to be the best. So one may say, well, I want to get a vehicle and this, that, and the third, but my credit is bad. Well, if your credit is bad, then be okay with having that money down payment or doing some type of creative financing and potentially not being able to get the vehicle that you want, okay? But if you're trying to get a vehicle, then you can for sure get a vehicle at any credit score, at any price point. Now, here's what happens. Even though you're going to get the best terms if you are a high credit score, prime, or whatever the case may be, they're going to still bring you in the dealership with low credit scores. Why? Because they can make the highest profits off of anybody that is in a subprime, anybody that's under 660. Okay, if you're under 660, they're going to try to make the most money out of you. Okay, because they know that you're emotional and you, in essence, feel like you have no options. Okay. They push for longer terms, extended warranties, and high rate markups that technically they really can't do that unless they're disclosing that prior to the original market price. So here's what they don't tell you. They're going to tell you like, oh, you're lucky to get approved. But the reality is that, and what we talk about on this channel, your signature actually creates the value. If your signature creates the value, then the dealerships get paid whether or not you make payments through securitization, through fractional banking. Okay, they're going to make their money regardless. Okay, so what I plan to talk about today is particularly in helping one who has bad credit negotiate. Okay, so if you have bad credit, this part is for you. I'm going to talk about the good credit and the free card towards the end, so stay all the way to the end. But let me cover the bad credit because most of the people that watch me are probably in this position. Okay, when you have bad credit, and I actually have notes on my phone, and my phone is dead. But when you have bad credit, one of the things that they're going to try to do is make money off of your APR. Okay, yes, they're going to go for a down payment or whatever the case may be, but they're going to go based off the APR. That's where they're going to make the most of their money. Okay, so what happens is when they go and they run your credit, they're going to tell you to apply, and they're going to apply to multiple banks. See, what they're looking for is a bank with a good buy rate. A good buy rate is the original APR. Okay, when you get these high 20 to 25% APRs, that is not the buy rate. That is them upscaling the APR rate. Okay, so a bank may approve you at 17% APR, but when you go to the dealership, they'll take that 17% APR and take it to the state maximum. The state maximum could be anywhere between 25 and 26%, maybe even up to 30%. I mean, anything higher than 20% is robbery. But the buy rate is probably going to be anywhere between 14 to 17%. Still a high APR, but when your credit is bad, the only thing that you don't really have much negotiation power, especially if you truly need or want the vehicle. If you don't truly need or want the vehicle and you're just testing it out or whatever the case may be, then if you don't like their buy rate, or if you don't like that they are not giving you a good APR, just get up and go to the next dealership. You'll probably get a better rate. Okay. But typically, when you get the application, they may give you a number, but ask them to show you the buy rate. The buy rate, you are lawfully able to ask that question to a dealer. They decide not to show it to you and say, well, you got to let me know a down payment or whatever the case may be, then just get up and walk away. All right. Don't talk monthly payments. Talk about the out of the door cost, because what your monthly payments is going to be dependent on is the out of the door cost. That includes dealer fees, taxes, registrations, whatever the case may be. That includes all of that. Okay. And a lot of times when we apply for a vehicle, we may see a car saying, oh, it is $20,000. But by the time you get out the door, they done tacked on another 3 to 4, maybe even $5K. That brought your payment up from like, you know, $230 to maybe $300. You get what I'm saying? So you don't want to talk monthly payments. You don't want to tell them this is how much I want to pay, because you got to factor in insurance. You got to factor in all these other extracurricular things that they're going to tack in there. So focus more on the out of the door cost, because when you look at the out of the door cost and how much you're going to pay monthly, which is relative on a good credit score, 100%, 720 plus credit score. If you have a car that is worth $20,000, your payment should be no more than $250. Okay. It goes by increments of 10. So if it's a $10,000 car, it's $100 a month. If it's a $20,000 car, it's $200 a month. 30, 300, 40, 400. And that's the absolute lowest rate. Okay. But what they'll do is they'll definitely play with the cost so that they can charge you more. The higher the APR, the higher that monthly expense is going to be. So don't talk monthly payments. Just focus on the out of the door cost and just know that small fundamental. You also want to do things like remove junk fees, dealer prep fees, window etching, paint protection, whatever the case may be. They're going to try to tack on extra money so that, let's just say if it's a $20,000 car or a $25,000 car, they're going to try to get it to $30,000 so they can get more money out of you, okay, up front or from the bank, quote unquote. And also for my lower credit people, if you can get pre-approved, that's going to be even better because you'll be able to have leverage when walking in the bank. You can say, hey, go ahead and run your financing, but I already have some financing. Or you don't even have to tell them. You can have them run their financing, see what numbers they give you. If it's better, great. If it's not better, then you give them your pre-approval, whether you go through Capital One, whether you go through, any other financing company. And I'm sure if you go to my Smart Credit link down below, tap in with Smart Credit, they'll be able to send you places that'll approve you, whatever the case may be, based on your credit, low or good. But you want to go ahead and get a pre-approval so that you'll have some type of leverage, because with bad credit, their argument is going to be that you have bad credit, okay? And you can argue them down about the risk and they're not actually risking their money. You can drop those knowledge bombs on there to try to persuade them that you know what you're talking about. But if they want to turn you away, they can, okay? So you'll have to give them something that'll entice them to negotiate with you. You don't want to go in there empty-handed with no knowledge or no level of, this is what I'm going to do and this is what I'm looking for, some type of class, and expect them to do what you want just because, the law says you can't deny me. Well, they're not going to take you through a denial. They're just going to go ahead and do a service, run your credit. And they're not the ones denying you. It's typically the banks. So if you get denied by a bank, then your conversation would be with the bank. It wouldn't be with the dealership. A lot of people go in a dealership and say, well, they won't do it. And they won't. If they don't have you under contract, then technically they don't really have to be held accountable for. But things like, hey, what is the buy rate? They have to disclose this to you. Things about the lending process, they have to disclose it to you. They say things like you're supposed to do a down payment when the reality is that you don't need to do that. Then you can go ahead and drop that knowledge bomb. But if you have bad credit, you got to do what you can so that you can get in the vehicle. After you get the vehicle and making the payments or whatever the case may be, is going to be up to you. But to get the vehicle, you got to have some level of negotiation power, whether you're going to have some level of down payment or whether you are going to have a pre-approval and know what you're talking about, okay, and know how to negotiate. Some of the negotiation lines that you can say is, can I see the bank approval sheets? So let me see all the banks that approve me and let me see the actual buy rate. Asking them a question, why is the APR higher than my FICO warrants? Okay, well, my FICO score says this, why is my APR higher than this? Okay, asking them these questions. Simply asking them for the buy rate is going to let you know how much the bank actually approved you for, and making sure that they're not upscaling. Remove every fee that is not required by law, okay? Dealer prep fees, whatever the case may be, they're going to say it's our policy to put it on there, but you can always negotiate it. If they're not willing to negotiate, just walk out and go to a different dealership. Find a better deal. They're going to say, other dealers, they charge this, that, and the third. But dealer prep fees are something that, again, that is not even an expense you should be paying. You have to prep your vehicles or else nobody's going to buy it. Okay? Hey, some people, okay, well, this is how we make our money and whatever. No, that isn't how you make your money. And that's not my problem. You get what I'm saying? So this is if you have bad credit. You want to make sure to know the buy rate. You want to make sure to focus on that out of the door cost, because that's going to reflect your payments. You want to also have some pre-approvals. Tell them to get rid of junk fees, dealer prep fees. The dealer is going to make their money off of the vehicle itself from you signing that promissory note. They're going to make their money off of it. All right. But they add on these fees so that they can make a little bit of extra money off of you. And the lower your credit score, the more they're going to try to take advantage of you. Okay. So people with the lowest credit score, anybody under subprime or deep subprime, you guys want to make sure you're well versed in your knowledge and your information. You want to make sure that you really have a tactic when you're going in there, and you have to be willing to walk away if it's not the car that you want, if it's not the money you want to spend, because there's many dealerships out here that you can go to that will work with you, okay, and have what it is that you're looking for, okay? It may take you longer to find that vehicle that's perfect, has the right price or whatever the case may be. But also, if you're going to get a vehicle now on bad credit, you want to get something that will sustain you while you're building your credit, okay? Especially if you need a vehicle, you want to do something that's going to be sustainable, okay? Don't go and spend the bag because you feel like you're going to discharge it later. Don't do it, okay? Now we're on that. Let's talk about how to use consumer law to be able to reduce or even discharge your vehicle debt. So first things first, what I want to cover is I want to cover the Truth in Lending Act, 15 USC 1601. So the first thing we'll talk about is 15 USC 1601, which is the Truth in Lending Act. The Truth in Lending Act is put in place because it requires clear loan terms and full disclosure. So anything that's dealing with a loan, anything that's dealing with debt or whatever the case may be, falls under the Truth in Lending Act, because if they're going to lend you money, or if they're in a lending business, then they are required to give you the truth behind the lending. So part of that is including things like, the APR percentage, including things that is informed, or they're supposed to inform all uses of credit and avoid the uninformed use of credit to protect the consumer against inaccurate or unfair credit billing and credit card practices. This goes hand in hand with 15 USC 15 USC 1666, which is the process of correcting billing errors. If you believe that in your heart of hearts, that when you apply for something and you assume it to be a loan, or you assumed it to be securitized, or you didn't get your disclosures as it pertains to the loan, or if we're talking about an error in billing, meaning they're charging you for something that they already got paid on, that would be considered a billing error under the Truth in Lending Act, under 15 USC 1601, under 15 USC 1666, is going to protect you against that. And remember, when it comes to consumer law, or the USC, the Truth in Lending, the FDCPA, that is the shield. So that is for protection, okay? And then we dive into the FDCPA. The FDCPA is geared towards any type of debt collection. So if they say that you owe a debt under 15 USC 1692, it has the whole Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which is geared towards challenging debt collectors. Anybody who claims you owe a debt fall under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and must adhere to it, must honor it, okay? So the reason why we use things like the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, the reason why we use things like the Truth in Lending Act and things in that nature, the billing error, and understanding that is because we want to be able to protect our rights. Because debt collectors do things like harass you, lenders don't give you the truth or full disclosures, and also at the same time, they will bill you when that is considered an error. So these are the laws that back up the protection aspect. But now let's talk about what the sword will be, which will be the UCC, and which will be the things that I cover under Article 9 and under Article 3. Now, I could go over the entire Article 3, okay, but I'm specifically going to go under 15 USC E3-603, which is the tender of payment. It says if a tender of payment of an obligation to pay an instrument is made to a person who is entitled to enforce the instrument and the tender is refused, there's discharge. So when you look on the aspect of challenging a claim or challenging a debt using a negotiable instrument, right, on the aspect of discharging debt or initiating discharge, if they refuse your tender, which is your performance to pay or your offer of money, then there's discharge. So if you created your own bill of exchange or promissory note for $30,000 and the vehicle is $30,000 and you sent it to them and they decided to refuse it, then it is discharged according to the UCC. So they can refuse it and say, oh, you can't use this to pay, but the law says that their refusal means discharge, okay? And I can keep going. I can go to the aspect where it's talking about under UCC 3-604, which talks about discharge by cancellation or renunciation, which breaks down the aspect of discharging debt and how one can do it, okay, and what will be required for one to be able to discharge debt. And we can even go into negotiable instruments and understanding that, but we won't do that in this video, okay? But then you go to Article 9 under UCC 9-210, where you can request for accounting. You can request for regarding a list of collateral. You can request for the statement of accounts. You can request for how the money goes in and out, what entries were put in, right? How much money is left? Was it sold or securitized? These are some of the things that companies or banks must give you, okay, in pertaining to an account. So I'm not just talking about this stuff just out the side of my neck. You can discharge debt, okay? And this is how you would typically get a vehicle for free, is by making sure you understand how to be able to discharge the debt properly and understand the key laws that's going to back it up. So here's some of the things that you're going to do. With those laws put in place, you can ask for things like a contract audit and proof of securitization. What is securitization? Did they make money off of the promissory note? These are the things that you can ask after you get the vehicle under contract, okay? So a lot of times people try to have this conversation before they get the vehicle. But the reality is that you want to be under contract first, and then you want to challenge them, okay? You want to then use the tender of payment, using a remittance coupon or notice of discharge, putting them on notice. Hey, look, I'm using this coupon to remit my bill. You dig me? And I'm putting you on notice that I'm discharging this debt. If you do not accept that, then the tender of payment law is put in place for their refusal, which means discharge. Boom. And number 3, if the loan was assigned, you would challenge the collector and use debt validation and ask them for the chain of assignment. Make sure that they are still the holder in due course, no matter if you're going to decide to pay it or not. These are things that they're supposed to give to you. The earlier you do it, especially when you just get a vehicle, the better. All right. Now, another thing I want to talk about is how to use good credit to leverage better deals. Okay. So if you're a prime buyer or you are a super prime buyer, you fall in the category of a 660 or better. The higher your credit score, the better your negotiation skills. So for those of you guys that are in there, you do not need to pay a down payment, okay? So yes, you can argue in there with bad credit that I don't need to pay a down payment, but if you're just looking at it from a business perspective, okay, bet I have the bad credit. I didn't meet the criteria in you guys' eyes, so how can I be able to just get into this vehicle? Now you can challenge it, you can argue them after the fact when you get the vehicle, but before you get the vehicle, you want to make sure you at least look the part. Boom, yes, I got 2-3K cash to put down on this vehicle. Okay, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to sue y'all after the fact. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to attempt to discharge it after the fact. But yes, I do got it all up front. Yes, I will contract with you guys. Okay, play the game. Obviously, ask those questions, drop those knowledge bombs so they're not taking advantage of you. But at the end of the day, if you truly need that vehicle, then have a good, set aside $2 to $3 grand cash or buy something cheaper, okay? So if you have good credit, you can do things like go in pre-qualified through credit unions or online banks. Make sure that you go and get a pre-qualification check. You'll probably get the best rate, and you won't have to worry about a down payment or even attempting to negotiate that, okay? You can ask for a rate match or something that can beat the rate. So if you have a pre-qualification, you can go in there with the rate that you have, and you can have them beat it or whatever the case may be. It's not about the monthly payment. It's about the percentage that they're going to give you and how much they're willing to loan you. They're willing to loan you $50,000 on 2 or 3% interest. That is good. Okay, that means you're going to be paying anywhere between $500 and $600, but you can also get 0% interest the better your credit is. If you're above 720, you can get 0% interest. Okay, you won't get that if you walk in with your own financing, but if you do walk in with your own financing, then you want to kind of go and not even tell them that, you know, just have them run your credit and let the dealer think that they have a shot. See how they're going to move before you pull out that check on them. Okay, and so what if you get inquiries on your credit report? I mean, most times you're going to get approved, but if you get inquiries on your credit report, you can just remove it using credit repair. You can send a letter to the company, to the credit bureaus, or you can call them and get them removed in 24 hours or less. Okay. You can use the competition between the lenders and the dealer to your advantage. Hey, they gave me 3%. This person gave me 1%. They're offering me this much money. You guys are offering me this much. You use that against each other so that they can be able to give you the best rate as well. So you have a lot of negotiation power when you are in that prime or super prime bracket. Okay. So those of you guys are 660 or better or 720 or better, you guys truly want to take advantage and get exactly what you want from the vehicle. If you have bad credit, you probably won't be able to get exactly what you want, but you can get into a car without being robbed. All right. You'll get robbed a little bit, but you at least can be able to get in something with a better deal. Here's a secret move. You can use your good credit to get 0% interest with strong manufacturer programs, right? If you're going through a business, you can do things and check the fine print because many offers hide hidden fees. So make sure that you are reading the fine print. Make sure you're reading your contracts. Make sure you're looking for those particular documents, because when we dive into attempting to get the car for free or using any debt discharge tactics, you want to make sure that you remember, okay, did they provide me this? Did they provide me that? Okay, no. I will probably catch them up later. They may not see that intend or notice to cancel, and they may say, where's my notice to cancel? No, we don't need to do that. Go ahead, don't give it to me, because I'm going to challenge you and I'm going to ask you to show proof that you have actually given that to me, and you didn't. Okay? So good credit, you pretty much have negotiation power. You don't have to put a down payment. I don't think anybody truly has to put a down payment, but the conversation and negotiation, their argument will only be, oh, well, you don't meet this. But okay, we can start to talk about the risk factors. Are you actually risking your own money? Okay, so we don't want to have that conversation yet. Now, let's talk about how to get a car for free. We talk about this commercial remedy strategy all the time. Or people talk about this, but they never truly explain how it works and how to get it for free. If you've gotten this far, we're 29 minutes in, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching this video. This is a video that is much needed so people can understand this process to its totality based on your positioning. You only can do the consumer law aspects if you do the studying. So I have the complete debt guide down below, breaking down how to be able to communicate with a debt collector, but also at the same time, the templates and resources so that you can learn from and use it to your advantage. So if you want to get a car for free, this is what's actually happening. Understand that you sign a retail installment contract at the dealership. Okay, that contract is a negotiable instrument that is then monetized and sold. Okay, when you sign that retail installment contract, that is a negotiable instrument, which is value or a financial asset to the bank. The dealer then takes this contract and delivers it to the bank, because the bank can then take this and sell it or monetize it through securitization to Wall Street, to mortgage-backed securities. They can also give it a QSIP number, which essentially means that it's a security. You know, they can also fractionalize it through modern banking, because money isn't real. Everything is made at the Federal Reserve Bank. They exchange that retail installment contract for the money, or as a matter of fact, they don't do it right away. They actually type in that number into that bank through a deposit, which is a unpaid balance according to the law, and they make you think they gave you money, but they never gave you money. They just took your promissory note, your financial asset, and essentially sold it. Okay, that's what's really happened. When they do that, the dealer gets paid, then turns around and treats you like a debtor. Okay, but the reality is that you're the creditor. You're the one that brought the value to the contract. You're the one who created the obligation. It says this in the UCC. Okay, so here's that private remedy flow. We kind of talked about this earlier. If you get the vehicle, whether you get it through bad credit or good credit, getting the vehicle is one thing. Okay, you have to have that true negotiation skills when getting the vehicle, and you may need to put down some money, or you may need to talk your way into, you know what I mean, getting a vehicle for free inherently. Okay, but for the most part, and the way you're going to do it properly is, number one, you're going to get the vehicle under contract. If you don't put a down payment, you're probably not going to put down much anyways that day, unless you're purchasing insurance. Okay, so boom, you get your vehicle, whether if you have good credit or you put down a down payment for bad credit. After you get that under contract, before when you get your first, so you can either do this before or you can do this after you get your first bill. But you want to request full accounting under UCC 9-210 and you want to send them a debt validation letter, okay? Before you send a debt validation letter, and the reason why you want to wait until they send you a bill is so that you can just maneuver with the aspect that you already felt like, it was already paid or securitized. You could also challenge them on the disclosures prior using the Truth in Lending Act, asking for that notice of rescission or doing anything like that. But I would suggest you wait until that first bill comes in. Okay, when that first bill comes in, you request for accounting, and also at the same time, you ask them for the proof if they securitize the loan, if they've already made money off of it, or if they've already charged it off. Okay. If that is the case and they send you a bill with a coupon, go ahead and tender that remittance coupon and send them a notice of discharge. Say, hey, look, I'm putting you guys on notice that I'm remitting and accepting this for value to discharge my obligation and set off my obligation. You dig what I'm saying? On top of that, I'm requesting that you provide the full accounting so that I know that it was done and that the amount was ledgered. If there is no lawful response, then you send them a notice of dishonor and give them an opportunity to cure. Hey, look, I sent you guys a letter, a notice of discharge. I sent you the remittance coupon. I asked you for the accounting on the UCC 9-210 so I can see if it was securitized, and you still decided not to give it to me. Boom. This is you giving them an opportunity to give you that information or adhere to your demands, or you're going to go ahead and finalize with the certificate of default. You're going to put them on notice about their default, and you're going to essentially enforce a UCC1 lien, or you can use things like small claims or arbitration to mediate the situation. But just know, during this process, they may do something like try to repossess your vehicle. They may do things like put the negative items on your credit report, like late payments. So you really don't want to do this if you want to still do applications, still apply for vehicles, still get credit. You want to do all of this after you have gotten all the credit that you wanted to get. If you're in a bad credit space, then, hey, you really have nothing to lose. But if you have good credit, don't do this unless you're absolutely confident that you're going to be able to do this. Don't get a vehicle after this video and attempt to discharge it just to try it out. If you're in a dire need for a vehicle, make sure you follow the steps to get in the vehicle and keep up the payments until you fully are confident in the process, or keep up the payments until you're ready for the risk. Because if you do go this route, your car will potentially get repossessed. You will potentially get late payments and your credit may get messed up. But if you know how to fix your credit and you're okay with that potential happening and you're going for the long run, then by all means do it, okay? Again, this is not legal advice. This is not financial advice. Do your due diligence. Make sure to tap in to complete that guide down below so that you can fully understand this administrative process and how to communicate with debt collectors. That's probably the most important key. Communicating with debt collectors after the fact is what's going to allow you to keep the car after the fact. Okay, because you have evidence of you communicating with them, then if they do repossess the vehicle, you have a case for unlawful repossession, and you can essentially sue them for the amount of the vehicle, okay, and get the vehicle back. All right. So this is again for educational use and requires precision. All right. But this is how the game works if you plan to do it in silence. You don't want to go in there, rah, I don't have to pay this car, this, that, and the third, dropping these knowledge bombs on there, expecting them to say, oh, you know what, you're right, and just give you the vehicle. It's not going to work like that. All right. Now, you don't need perfect credit to get the car. You just need perfect positioning, whether you're going to position through leverage of your own income or whether you're going to use your credit as positioning. But when you understand how to negotiate, how to dealer profits off of your spread, how to apply consumer law and get commercial remedy, you take control. So it doesn't matter whether you get a vehicle on a bad contract or you get a vehicle and, or you have bad credit or you have good credit, you know what I mean? It won't matter. You know how everything works. And essentially, when you know how everything works, then you have the control. You can decide whether or not to get that vehicle. You know that if you spend 30 grand on the car, then your payment is going to be no less than $300. You know that if it's a 10% APR, right, that you're going to spend a little bit higher. right? You know that if you have bad credit, you're gonna have to have some level of down payment. You know you can attempt to go in there and argue with them, but you'll be arguing with dealers for weeks. You know, you'll be getting turned away. But once you get it on the contract, you know that you truly have the full control. You know that you're the one that credited them. And that's when you're in control. When you understand everything on the background and what's happening behind the scenes, you'll be okay with making things like making a down payment. And you'll be okay with, having to communicate with them after the fact. We are not moving with emotion here, okay? Only legal merit. Whether you're working with bad credit or good credit, the leverage is yours if you know the system. If you've gotten this far, comment the word discharge. Remember to like, hit the subscribe button, tap in, okay? Click on the post notifications, tap in with my Instagram, tap in with my Twitch at biz.nick and biz_nick. We talk about commercial remedy, we talk about credit, we talk about funding, we talk about getting vehicles, we talk about using consumer law to your advantage. We talk about making money and becoming financially free. And if you're really trying to tap in with us, go ahead and click the like button, subscribe button, comment the word discharge, and I'll see you in the next one.